Today is the 25th of April, 2023. We're in the UAHS Community Foundation Room, and today we are talking with Debbie Smith, who is the co-owner of the Goodie Shop. Okay, so can you start out telling us a little bit about who you are and what the Goodie Shop is?
I'm Debbie Smith. I am second generation owner of the Tremont Goodie Shop. My father bought it in 1967 from a gentleman named Bill Wood. Bill Wood started with a very small bakery on Arlington Avenue, and when the Tremont Center was being built in 1955, the expansion was, he decided to move the bakery there. So we still have the original oven from 1955, a mixer, a bun divider, and yes, it's old. I consider it vintage, but they work like champs. There's new equipment just doesn't last as long anymore. I started playing in 1967. My dad would come in and say, break me a gallon of eggs. And man, I'd go to town. A gallon of eggs is a lot of eggs. Or help cut out cookies and things like that for the business. Eventually that led to, I got a job there in 1971. I needed a car to get there because I did not go to Upper Arlington High School. I went to Northland High School when it was built, and I didn't have the money for a car. So my dad said, that's why you need the job. So kind of went hand in hand, and he started the book and we wrote down how much the car cost, and I had to work it off. Back then I made 90 cents an hour, and it was going to take me a long time to pay off the car. In today's prices, you know, I'm sure it's equivalent to wanting to work and then buy a car. But I thought that was cute. But he had me working 5 nights a week after school every day, plus all day on Saturday. I didn't have after school activities really, and I worked. I had to pay off a car. And the next thing I knew, I had to get tires and that too. So I started making friends there with the employees that I worked with. Many were Upper Arlington High School students, and it just kind of went from there. The next thing I know, you know, I'm graduating, and I was going to be a teacher. I was going to go off to college. I had visited colleges, and then my dad came to me and said, you know, I could either send you to college, or there's another bakery I'd like to buy, and it's in Kingsdale Center. And if you take that job to manage it, I'll pay you well. Well, being daddy's girl, I was like, do I want to go to college to be a teacher, or do I want to run the bakery for him? And I decided to run the bakery. That was this path that just peanuts. So it's true, you never know what path your life's going to take. So I started working at that bakery and built the business up, and ran that one, and then I ended up eventually coming back to Tremont and running that one for my dad when he retired. And now we're third generation. My 2 daughters are on board, and we're co-owners, and they had to earn the co-ownership. I didn't just hand it to them. They had to earn it by working.
And do you hope for this business to stay in the family?
I do. I hope we do. It's all you can do. You know, it's kind of up to my daughters at this point, if it goes another generation or not. Yeah.
So why has Upper Arlington been such a special location for you?
Location, this shop, the whole Upper Arlington they're just like a family. And it's kind of like that at the bakery too. And our customers, you get to know them. You might not know their first name, but you know it's, oh, there comes Cheese Danish guy. And you bag up a Cheese Danish and you have it ready for him when he comes in the door. You really get to know people, and you get to know their families. I've seen, gosh, now 3 generations, you know, kids coming in with their parents, kids grow up, go off to college, have a family, come back, they want to be in Arlington. And there they are with their kids, and you're just like, wait a minute, when did that happen? And then same thing, their kids grow up and have a family. It's really, I think Arlington is very family oriented, and I really do like that. It's a nice tight-knit community, I believe, yes.
Can you talk about some of your most special customers at the Goodie Shop?
Oh gee, so many. Yes. One of the most recent, during COVID, we had an older gentleman, and he was Mr. Custard Donut with the chocolate icing. And he would always call and just say, hey, save me one. And he was so nice. He would get a pizza at Tommy's Pizza, bring it to the bakery, and we'd get a box of donuts, and he'd take it back to Tommy's Pizza for lunch and stuff, because you know, you can only eat so many baked goods or so much pizza and you're ready for something different. Nice gentleman, and he called one day, and it was just after we were allowed to start entering businesses again with masks and plastic up, and he ordered his donut, and my daughter bagged it up for him. She has a certain way she folds the bag in with a little red heart. She put a red heart on it. He came in to pick it up. He wanted to talk to her. She went out front, and okay, here goes. He had his stimulus money check that we received because of COVID and not being able to work and things like that. And he said, I want to do something good I don't need it all. And so he gave $1,000 for one donut. So that's Upper Arlington. That's just that relationship you have with people. Anyway, $1,000 for a donut. And my daughter took his picture, and he said, no, I want to remain anonymous. And so she narrowed down the picture to just his little hand holding the bag with a little red heart on it, and sent it to me. And I was like, what's going on? And my daughter sends me her picture, her selfie, and she's crying. And I'm like, what's wrong? What's going on? And so she told me who came in, and then he bought a donut for $1,000. And then this is what I did. I took a selfie and I sent it to her. And then my other daughter also selfie, and we're all just sobbing because COVID was really a difficult time. And someday we'll look back on that and think, wow, that was rough, you know, just like you look back on the Depression and things like that. But they put it on Facebook, just the picture of his hand and a little bit about that story. And then local news crews picked up on it, and it was on the nightly news. And then national news picked up on it. It was the Today Show with Hoda Kotb and Al Roker. And they just through photos were showing this story because they couldn't come in to film, telling the story about the one gentleman. I think everyone needed good news. Just tell me something good. And that's what that was. That was one very special customer, and it wasn't the money, it was that they cared. They cared. You know, they didn't want us to go out of business. And we had a tip jar out there, and it's surprising that people, you know, they would buy maybe chicken pot pies, and then they'd throw a $100 bill in the tip jar. And they said, just use it for whatever you need. Of course, you still needed payroll, and you had your insurance you had to pay, and you had all your bills and your rent. And you were just hoping you could stay in business, hold on long enough to reopen. So we did. So that's the good news from that.
Yeah, one that I'd love to hear about again is the Flippo donut.
Oh, the Flippo donut's very cute. There was a local TV personality, and I still see him in black and white, but he wore a clown outfit with big puff balls all over it and a really goofy hat and his full makeup every day. And he was a local guy, but he would show an after-school movie. And in between the movie, where normally you'd have commercials, Flippo would talk about Ovaltine or chocolate milk or whatever it was he was talking about. But he mentioned once that he loved donuts. And his birthday was coming up. He must have mentioned it. And my dad went into work with his 3 brothers. All 4 had a bakery together. And he says, you know, we should do something fun for Flippo. Let's take him some donuts tomorrow. Well, as brothers would do, they all started chatting, and the idea grew until they said, let's take him a giant donut. So they took him in. My dad dropped off to the station a giant donut with Happy Birthday Flippo on it, written on it. And my dad comes home from work. He says, you need to watch Flippo tonight. There might be something special on there. So I'm glued to the set, you know, like, I don't know what he's talking about. But Flippo did. He turned the donut around, and he goes, this is from the Krennic Brothers Bakery, and they made me this donut. And people started calling the Krennic Bakery wanting a donut just like that for someone's birthday, something special. And to this day, we still make the Flippo donut. And most customers have no idea why is it called a Flippo donut. But I like to fill in the history to the customers to tell them what it was all about.
Can you tell me a little bit about 2009 and the bakery closing?
That's a long story. I'll try and shorten it. In 2006, my mother was fairly sick. She had congestive heart failure. My father had issues with mini strokes. And I was trying to take care of them. I had 3 kids. I had a house to take care of. I had the business. And I couldn't hold that whole ball of wax together. So I talked to my husband. I said, I don't know what I'm going to do. I can't keep these hospital visits and emergency rooms and everything together. And my husband says, well, you know, you can't abandon your family, you can't abandon your parents. You know, we got our home, we got to take care of that. And he says, I think maybe the bakery will have to go. Broke my heart. But I remember driving home and writing down different places I might call to see if they'd like another location or whatever. And then I thought of my sister, who once upon a time worked for us as a cake decorator, and her husband once upon a time was a baker. I called them and I said, are you interested? If taking over the bakery, I'll give it to you. And they're like, well, yeah, you know, a running business that's profitable and does well and the community loves it. And I didn't want to see the employees out of a job. I didn't want to see customers not have the bakery. So I gave it to them, lock, stock, and barrel, signed it over. And then I could take care of my parents. And then my father passed away about a year later. My mom, I had to move them out of the house into an assisted living, and then sell the house, get the house ready for sale, clean it out. I actually thought, this is good. This is what I had to do. It's true. I had to work on for them. And then I did still work at the bakery some, but the atmosphere changed. They weren't very good managers. And within 3 years, 2009 in September, I received some phone calls from customers in the area that said, the bakery closed. What happened? And I was shocked. I didn't know the bakery was going to close. I wasn't told because I kind of stopped working because of the management style. And I called my brother-in-law and I said, look, I gave the bakery to you. My father's passed. My mom's doing better. Can I come in and just take over the bakery since you're struggling? And they said no, that I could go to the auction like everyone else. We didn't know what auction they were talking about, but they had signed an agreement with an auctioneer to auction off every single thing in that bakery. After I had given it to them, I couldn't believe that and so they told me what a very expensive amount that they wanted if I wanted to take it back over, which I couldn't do that. I didn't have the money. So I had to go to the auction, and I had about less than a month before that auction, and I decided to talk to the owners of the shopping center. They said they'd love to have me back. If I wanted, please come back, actually. And so we decided I would have to attend this auction. And the day I arrived at well, many things happened before that, but my daughters wanted to kind of rally for the bakery. I mean, they grew up there, and it's their grandpas, their moms. So Facebook was fairly new back then, and they said, can we post on Facebook to save the bakery? And I don't know what Facebook is, but okay, go ahead. But then they started showing it to me, the Facebook page, and we just sent it out to relatives, neighbors, friends, which wasn't that big of a community. And every day they were showing me how many people joined the Facebook page. And a lot of it started catching on that it was customers. There's Upper Arlington again, that community thing. So they all started posting memories. That was fun to read. Just it made you realize what it meant to people. So please do not do this again. Anyway, my daughter says, can we make some t-shirts, you know, for the bakery? And I said, I don't know, what do you mean? And then they wanted I and a heart, just like I Heart New York, I Heart the Goodie Shop. I go, okay. I go, how much are they? I don't know, they were 10 or so bucks each. I said, okay, get like 5 or 6, I'll wear one, your dad will wear one, you guys can wear one, my mom could wear one. They even got a teeny size one for one dog in the family to wear for the auction. And then they posted one picture on that same Facebook page. You know, we could, if you'd like to support the bakery, this could help, you know, buying the t-shirts, because after you buy a certain amount, then the price can drop a little bit. So within a few days, we had over 400 shirts sold. And we had to drive up to Cleveland to pick them up in the van, which just gave us a lot of time to talk about what's coming up. And I had my mom in the hospital again. I got a phone call, and it was the auctioneer, and he said he heard there was going to be maybe a rally at the bakery, and he goes, you cannot interfere with this auction. butt out, can't interfere. I'm like, okay, I didn't mean to offend, you know. So the bank, again, we got this community going on. The bank that's there said you can set tables up down here and for your shirts. And then my daughter says, well, let's make our famous thumbprint cookies. In our little oven at home, we're baking hundreds and hundreds of cookies to take, and we got big coolers for, you know, drinks and things, just to thank people if they wanted to come over. I pulled up for the auction, and there was a lot of cars in the parking lot, and in the courtyard I could see all of our items from out of the bakery. I went into the bakery, it was cleared out except for the showcases, the big oven, the big stuff, the back. Tablefuls of things like cookie cutters, stainless steel bowls, rolling pins. I mean, it's like, oh my gosh, I got to buy all this. So then I thought, I have got to really focus, what do I really need to reopen? Because I only had a second mortgage on the house that I could use, and then I was not going to have, I had to really budget it. And it's like this cookie cutter, how much will somebody buy it? You know, and it goes up to $1. And I'm like, $1.05, you know? And they go, how many do you want? How many do I want? There's 200 of them laying there. And I'm thinking, that's a couple $100 just in cookie cutters. Okay, you know, I said, I'll take all of them. I had to, and then some things were very sentimental. There is a large scale. It has a scoop on it, little dials, and that tell you how much everything weighs. That scale, my daughter, who's now 41, was weighed in that scale. I had first child, grandchild, brought the baby. My dad would lay a towel in the scoop and weigh her as I'd come in. It was those sentimental things were going to kill me that those were out there. I couldn't let them go. So more and more people showed up for the auction. We had to sign in. And then I saw them all milling about, and they had the Goodie Shop t-shirts on, and I'm like, gosh, they're going to interfere with this auction. What am I going to do? I don't have control of these people. But I saw familiar customers and friends all showing up for this auction, and then a lot of strangers because they wanted to pick up things for just pennies on the dollar, and that is what happens. So I had to start bidding on things, had my little card, what I wanted, you know, but then I started having customers come up, and they kind of tap me, hey, do you need those rolling pins? I'm like, yeah. They go, let us buy it for you. I was like, what? Oh, thank you, you know. So they'd bid on it, buy the rolling pins, brought them over to me and said, where do you want us to put these? I'm like, I don't know. I didn't know people were going to do that. So I guess put them over in this corner. So they did that. And I had so many customers coming up, ask me if the next thing up for the auction, they come over and go, do you need those? Let us buy it for you. It was, who does that? I have to say I don't have an, you know, affection for a business. Most businesses I don't. I mean, you go into a big grocery store, how much affection do you have for that grocery store? It's just something you do. But these people, that was amazing. There was news crews there, radio crews, and filming the whole thing. What shocked me was they had the auctioneer says, now I'm going to go inside and do the big equipment, and I'm going to leave my buddy here to auction off everything else. I can't be two places at once. It was such a stressful day, and some of this is stress. It still comes back. But I had my former employees. You know, I'd called them. They had left. I mean, they all went and got other jobs. They didn't like the atmosphere. Say, we'd come back if you were running it. And I was like, thank you. That'd be great. So they show up the auction, and their spouses showed up for the auction, and they came to me and said, it's okay. We know what we need. Let us bid on your behalf. And then I had to go inside, and I was having to buy the showcases, refrigeration, freezers, the oven, and all that. I had to buy all that. So end of day, it was emotionally draining. They added up on their little adding machine how much I owed. And it was more than I had for my second mortgage. It totally drained me. My checking account and our second mortgage. And I didn't have quite enough. And my daughters go, wait, we had people that wrote checks, and you know, I think we've got enough. We might have enough. And so they hurried, and they had the cash for off the t-shirts, and we came out exactly right. We had just the right amount of money to buy everything. And then that evening, everything had to be hauled back inside the bakery. It was just a cluster, a mess of everything just sitting around everywhere. And I ended up
all the employees stayed and said, we'll come in, don't have to pay us. We'll come in, we'll clean everything, reorganize, and we'll get you ready to open. And we had some of the shopping center owners stop in and go, when are you going to reopen? I'm like, end of October. And they said, you can't do that. There's no way. But with teamwork and all the help that we had, we did. We reopened like on that October 26th of that year. And again, news crews, ribbon cutting, amazing, the amount of flow of customers. And we wanted to thank everyone for their support. And we're kind of known for smile cookies, okay? So we just said, we put a big poster up that we're all smiles. The day that we were gonna reopen, it was free cutout cookies, kind of get everybody back in the groove and make sure everything was working, like the oven and all that. And we made hundreds and hundreds of the smile cookies and had drinks and things. And the flow of people just coming through the bakery for their free cookies, say hi, so glad you're back in business. We had people sending flowers. It was, again, Upper Arlington. You ask, why is it special? That's a lot of the story right there. It's a long story, but worth telling from beginning to end. Okay.
So what do you think has changed about the business and what stayed the same since you first kind of started out?
Stayed the same, that everybody likes sweets, pretty much. I mean, maybe people shouldn't be eating as many, but they do. And I would say the demographics have changed and also the products. Back, 30, 40 years ago, white bread, big thing. Now, hardly no white bread sells. We'd sell hundreds a day, and now we're down to 4 or 5, But other individual items have really taken over. Not a huge cake. I'm just going to get little cupcakes. You can either have it or not. I'd say that's changed in like the demographics as far as the age group. It was, when I first started working, more elderly that lived in Arlington, and now it's really changed to where it's young families, a lot of young families. And it's kind of cute. I see these little kids come in, you back your mind like, future customer, they're gonna hang around, and this will be fun to them because so many of your memories, think about it, parties and things, it involves food and taste. And I don't know how that connection happens to memories, but it does. If you have a birthday, your parents are going to make you your favorite meal and get you a birthday cake, And so we'd see everybody going through getting baptism cake, and then birthday cakes for years and years, and then they're getting a wedding cake, and then they're having their kids, and it's just a perpetual flow of generations.
You have some interesting stories about people outside of Upper Arlington in different states knowing about the Goodie Shop. Would you like to share about those?
Yes. My husband was a general manager of a Honda dealership, and there was a lot of traveling that he'd do, and I got to go with him sometimes. And we were in San Francisco once at a Honda new car show, and we were all sitting around a big table, 8 or 10 people, and most of the gentlemen there were managers or owners of dealerships, and we ladies would be polite and let the guys talk about how many cars they sold and everything. Well, this time, this couple had their name tags. They were from Montgomery, Alabama, and the lady kind of leaned forward past her husband. She said, "Do y'all work outside the home?" And I said, "Yes, I do." "Oh, what do y'all do?" And I said, "Well, I own a little bakery." "Oh, really? Where's your bakery?" I'm like, "Ohio, Columbus, Ohio." "Oh, where in Columbus?" And I'm thinking, man, she's getting like narrowing it down. What is this about? I said, "Well, it's a little suburb. It's called Upper Arlington." "Not the Tremont Goodie Shop." And I was like, the whole table went silent and looked at her because she was so excited. And I was totally thinking, how would she possibly know? She's in San Francisco, which, you're away from home, and she's from Montgomery, Alabama, clearly with her accent, and knows about the bakery. And so, of course, I had to ask the story on it. And here she grew up in Upper Arlington, went to college down in Alabama, and met her husband, who eventually owned a dealership. And she said no one's allowed to go visit without bringing cinnamon sticks and things with them from the bakery. They have to bring something from the Goodie Shop to her. And just thought that was interesting. And, of course, she had to explain her accent. She grew up here, but boy, she picked up that accent. But interesting. We've had cruises. We're in Alaska, and somebody from LA, or like, you start talking about what you do, and here you're on a cruise ship in Alaska, people are from LA, but they grew up in Upper Arlington and know about the bakery. It shocks me. Another one's my niece was in Indonesia. A little bed and breakfast with another couple down at breakfast. The person who owned the home made muffins, and they ended up having muffins for breakfast. She left the room, and the other couple go, "Oh, these muffins are pretty good." And my niece said, "Not as good as my aunt's bakery." And they go, "Really? Where's your aunt's bakery?" Started talking, and these people knew about the Goodie Shop because they had grown up in Upper Arlington, loved it, still had things shipped, and just an interesting story. You know, Indonesia, how in the world, it's a small world, it is.
What would you say the most popular item at the shop is?
Cinnamon sticks and our butter cutout cookies, like the Smiles. Cinnamon sticks, we did get the recipe from the previous owner, and he make maybe one pan every few days, you know, keep them in the cooler. I think last year we maybe sold 150,000 of them, and they do ship well. They go. We're actually going to hang a map that shows how many places these cinnamon sticks have traveled. Just they're real thin layers of sweet roll dough, very thin, and in between each layer there's butter, butterscotch, and cinnamon, kind of gooey, like the best part of the inside of a cinnamon roll. You know how you eat the cinnamon roll and it's like, that's the best piece right there? These cinnamon sticks are like that the entire time. And so, yeah, that's most popular. We also are part of the reason people get hooked on them is they come in the front door, and you can kind of tell when a customer's like, they're looking around like they've never been in before, and we ask, "Have you been in before?" "No." "Oh, well, here, you need to try one of these cinnamon sticks." And then that's it. They either buy it or they just keep coming back for them. But our fresh donuts are done every day. I never sell a donut that's a day old. They are fresh every single morning. Those are very popular, like the Long Johns with the cream filling and the chocolate icing. So there's so many other things. I could keep going, but those are the top ones.
And then what is your favorite item?
White cake, white icing. I think it's because I don't sit down and eat a cake all the time. I mean, so it's more of a more rare time that I get to enjoy that. So when I get a birthday coming around or an anniversary, I want white cake, white icing, and enjoy a slice of it. And it's very popular. It's still made from scratch. The frosting is, the cake is. We don't use mixes. Everything's still from scratch from my dad used to have the recipes on these little cards in a little can, and he'd flip through them and use it. And he developed that white cake and white icing, and I think it's perfection.
And then I know you touched on this at the beginning, but I'd love if you go more in depth with your father. And I know you said a lot of his family was bakers.
Right.
Just kind of the history on that.
Yeah. In my dad's family, my grandmother was full Czechoslovakian. With her husband, they came over to the United States. And I'm not sure at all about the history of how they ended up in Columbus, Ohio, but she had 12 children. And of the 12 children, the oldest one got a bakery when he got out of the service. Started a bakery because he went to cook and baker school when he was in the Navy. And then after him, as brothers got out of the service, he was getting busier and busier with his bakery. They'd come into the fold, so to speak, and they were bakers. And I think the baking history of it was because Grandma had to bake. She had 12 kids. She didn't go to the grocery store and all that. She made everything at home. And so they watched her, and they caught on how to bake, and then they'd go on and learn more about it. And my dad was the last one out of the service. He actually could either go to engineering school or cook and baker school. He chose cook and baker school. And he loved it, but he was also baking for 2,200 men on the ship. And the ship was going from San Fran to Hawaii and back, and they'd take the troops back and forth. And he enjoyed that. And then 4 brothers went together to have their own bakery. It was called Kenmore Bakery here in Columbus. Another uncle had a bakery in Marysville, and the oldest brother passed away. And anyway, so about 6 of them were bakers. Very interesting that they all had that affinity. And I do remember going in as a small little girl. They'd let me come in, and I couldn't last very long, but it was just playing with one piece of dough, making a twist and this and that, or a dinner roll. And then after a while, I had to just go out and sleep in the car. I couldn't do it. I don't know how, I wondered how in the world do these guys work all night?
well, they slept all day. I was in school, you know. So, yeah, my grandmother, she made some really good things, and some of the recipes of hers are still used in the bakery.
So finally, I'd love if you could tell us a little bit about your shirt.
Oh, my shirt. There was an Upper Arlington resident. Of course, he loves our cinnamon sticks. He says, "Can I design you guys a shirt? I think I got an idea I'd like to do." And we said, "Okay, that sounds fun." So he brought in the sketch, and here's our little cinnamon stick guy. He's running along for the original Goodie Shop. And so we did print them off, and they're pretty popular. They're very cute.